All right, what is up, everybody? It's Rob here, and I'm coming with you with the Friday nightly watch list because tomorrow is going to be a big week. It's earnings season, right? Things are going to be moving, right? We have a lot of stuff going on, right? President Trump, President Xi of China, they're going to meet on Thursday, right? It's earnings season, right? We got China news coming out. It's going to be a lot of stuff going down. And on top of it, today was a crazy day in the market. So stay tuned. Let's get into the news. Let's get into the plays and let's talk about what went down. So, first things first, right? The S&P 500 and the NASDAQ both hit fresh record highs today. And this was because in the morning, CPI data came out. And, it was in line, right? But some would call it a beat. So, for example, for the month of September, the estimate, right, for, the price increase was 0.4. It came in at 0.3, right? So a small beat. And then year over year, right, the estimate was 3.1, came in at 3. So you might go, Rob, well, this doesn't really seem that big, 0.3 to 0.4. Well, nonetheless, it showed that inflation is not rising, which the market loves because that puts into force more rate cuts. So, all right, the rate cut expectations, right? You can actually see there's this Fed CME, probability tracker, and you can see the probability of the rate cuts. Now the market's pricing in a cut in October and in December, right? But it was kind of online coming into December. Will we get that cut? Will we not? And now the CPI data is really driving home. All right, guys, we might get 2 cuts this year, each 0.25%, and that's crack for the market. When you get rate cuts, that is cheaper capital for businesses, which increases corporate earnings, and the market loves it. So the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ both hit fresh record highs on CPI data that came in well, and proves that, hey, we're going to be getting rate cuts coming from the Federal Reserve. So there was that. And then we also, right, it's earnings season. We had Intel earnings after the bell yesterday, and they were up over 11% after reporting their earnings. Now, Intel, it did give it all up. It was up from over 11% to actually intraday, it went red. Now, that does present an interesting trade opportunity, so we're going to be getting into that later because I did make a play on Intel this morning that I want to talk about. But for right now, let's keep getting into the news. We also had a gold and silver cool down, right? Gold is set to snap its 9-week winning streak based on profit taken and trade optimism. But for the most part, why is it coming down? Well, because it just went up a lot. People are going to come in the market, take their profits. There's going to be short sellers, right? So a lot of price targets for gold to hit $5,000 an ounce. But we saw it to actually kind of get a snap back down to reality here. So some profit taking going on in gold and in silver. So keep your eyes on that. And then we also had news that President Trump and the administration sanctioned Russian oil companies. So oil was actually up on this news, and oil was actually just hitting fresh lows, for year to date for a price of crude oil. And that's why you notice at the pump, gas prices have been coming down. I've been seeing around 284 in my area, but now, okay, well, oil was up a little bit because Trump put these Russia sanctions, and he's trying to get the EU to stop buying Russian oil, which will drive the price up. But that's obviously, he's doing that because he's trying to end the Russian-Ukrainian war. So he goes, okay, well, let's put some pressure on Russia's oil business, and if we can get that going, maybe it'll incentivize Putin to stop the war. So there you go. You have with that. AMD was up 2.5% this pre-market, and it kept running because IBM, right, came out and said that AMD has a chip that their quantum computing algorithm can run on. So IBM, right, that's soared, AMD's soared. So once again, AI bubble, all this stuff that pertains around AI, the chips, right, everything. Well, sending those stocks higher, it's ridiculous. It's crazy out here. Next thing I have for you, Trump actually terminated all U.S. trade negotiations with Canada over a Reagan tariff TV ad. Right, some more tariff news coming out. So you could look at some of the names pertaining to Canada, but he did, slow down all the U.S. trade negotiations with Canada based off of that. And like I was telling you at the beginning of this video, right, President Xi and President Trump, right? They meet next Thursday, right? The big meeting, because you look back about a week or two ago, right? The market had a big move down because Trump came out and said, hey, you know what? We're going to be putting a 145% tariff on China starting November 1st if they don't have a deal with us, because China stopped buying U.S. farmers' soybeans, while at the same time they stopped exporting some of their critical minerals that are, the U.S. depends on. So that meeting's going to be next Thursday, next week, okay? Huge, huge day coming up on Thursday. And we have earnings, which I'm going to talk about. And then also, right, another part of the market that's been in a bubble, which is quantum, right? I keep telling you guys, AI, right, bubble, nuclear in a bubble, quantum's in a bubble, okay? Well, quantum, right, was interesting yesterday because, and coming in today, because you started getting these headlines where, oh, the Trump administration is actually going to take stakes in some of these quantum companies, sources said. And then you got some other headlines. Well, the sources said they're not going to be taking any stakes. And it kept going back and forth, back and forth. So you saw quantum names going up and down. And it created a bunch of volatility. But, no one knows what's really going to happen with that, right? If the government's actually going to take any stakes in quantum companies. But nonetheless, it's something important to know with the news, because that industry, right, it's flying. And government stakes, okay, well, right, that's a hot topic because you see with the critical mineral stocks, right, those have all been flying on government equity positions, now quantum rumors. So we need confirmation for that, but nonetheless, quantum is continuing to go crazy, especially off of those headlines. And then Ford reported earnings, and they actually beat their earnings, but they lowered their 2025 guidance after one of their supplier sites, manufacturing facility, caught on fire. And it's going to take a big hit, right, to, the amount of cars they can manufacture heading into 2025, or the end of 2025 heading into 2026. But nonetheless, right, it was a good earnings, and the stock went up over 12%. And you just saw General Motors as well. Their stock flied up 13%. And, coming into these earnings report, everyone was kind of scared because, the tariffs that Trump put on, cars. Everyone was like, oh my God, it's going to be awful earnings, coming up. Well, guess what? All those stocks are flying to all-time highs. So, all right, all those companies, GM and Ford, they're absolutely killing it. And then, the government shutdown is still happening, right? The White House came out today and said there will likely not be, an inflation release next month for the first time in history. And, that's big news because we have Fed cuts. Everyone's trying to, front run and talk about. And, everyone wants to see that data, the inflation data, right, coming out of the White House, because, that's going to be a big data point on Fed rate cuts. So government shutdown, well, you're not getting any government data. So this could be for the first time in history, you're not going to get a inflation, release. And then I also just have here for you, not stock moving news, but nonetheless, right? Crypto, another, category of the market. Well, JP Morgan came out and they said they're actually going to allow Bitcoin and Ethereum as collateral on loans, because, they're having their crypto push. And so now you're seeing Bitcoin and Ethereum going to be allowed to be used as collateral on loans. So, big news there. And like I'm telling you guys, right? Why is next week going to be so crazy? Huge earnings coming up, okay? I'm going to put on the screen now the Earnings Whisper calendar for the earnings. Shout out Earnings Whisper, right? I love them, right? They compile all of, the earnings coming up before the market opens, after they close, which day. And then you can even go into their site and get some EPS estimates and revenue estimates to see, what are analysts, expecting for this quarter? What is the stock pricing in based on those estimates? And then, after the earnings come out, that's where you see the big moves up or down based on, did the company outperform or underperform based on those estimates. And next week is huge. I mean, we have Apple after the close on Thursday. That's going to be a big one because, the Trump China news. So they're going to have their meeting and you're going to get Apple earnings. So huge thing there. Right? You have Amazon after the close on Thursday. Meta after the close on Wednesday. Bunch of tech names, bunch of big companies. Okay. And it's a good week for us because a lot of our long-term names that we've been, watching or wanting to add to the long-term portfolio, they're going to report as well, right? I've been watching UPS and now they're going to report Tuesday morning. So that's going to be, a big earnings because that could, potentially provide an opportunity for an entry, right? Another stock, long-term candidate, Whirlpool, right? The appliance maker, they're going to report after Monday on the close. And then, oh yeah, another big name I've been looking at, Chipotle. They're going to report after the close on Wednesday. So, those are just three names that we're seeing that are long term candidates that are going to report. And it's going to be a big week for us, guys. I mean, maybe we can add to the long term portfolio. I've been, holding the cash right now. The last monthly deposit I've been holding because there's been so much volatility in the market and it's earnings season. So, I'm being patient. I'm waiting for opportunity to come my way in the long term so we can get a really good price on some of the names that we've been looking at. And, right now, next week, maybe it's our opportunity to strike. So that's what I have for you guys. And then, I wanted to talk a little bit about the plays that we did. So Intel, right, this morning coming in, I was like, okay, well, Intel, this 38, price has really been a big resistance for Intel. And, anytime Intel goes up, I mean, it's been selling off. So Intel was up over 11%. And this morning I said, okay, well, let's take some 38 puts in the morning. And those did extremely well. We were up over 300% on those, sold them. And then we actually played it back right in the morning. I said, okay, well, 38, I'm like thinking that's as low as where it's going to go based on that resistance. Well, we sold them at 38. Then we actually flipped the calls and we made 100% on it. So look, we made money both ways on Intel, right? On the profit taken of the earnings report, and money back up after the sell off, and right, earnings always present a great opportunity. I mean, you can obviously buy option contracts before the earnings come out and play that, but that's a big risk. But what I like to do a lot of times is play the premium after the earnings report, okay? Because a lot of times you see a lot of the premium get crushed, maybe because the stock didn't move right as much as it was expected to off the earnings report. So the next, market open, okay, all those premiums get crushed, but then the stock could actually have its move, right, in the cash open. So it always presents a great opportunity, and that's exactly what we did with Intel, right? We bought puts, right, option contract where we profit when the stock comes down, and there's big profit taken at Intel, came all the way back down to 38, made a huge return on investment on that trade, right? We killed it, and it was great. And then one thing I did want to tell you guys about was Target. So that's another long-term candidate name we're looking at. And there's a headline that came out that says they're going to lay off about 8% of their headquarters team. So it's going to cut about 1,800 roles. So a lot of times, when you see corporations cut employees, you think, oh my God, that's awful. Like they have to fire people. Maybe the company is going to go bankrupt. Oh my God. Well, actually, a lot of times Wall Street loves it because what does it mean when you fire people? It means less expenses, less payroll, which means more profit potential. So, Target is a long-term candidate name we've been watching. It's actually had a big run up, and now, they're laying off 8% of their employees. So, there you go. Keep watching Target. And then Beyond Earnings also had their earnings report. Now, that was just a recent meme stock rally, and right, that was an opportunity to play this morning off a sell-off because the earnings report came out, and then you could have played the continued sell-off of the meme stock. And then Uber, right, was whipping around back and forth because they had news yesterday of an NVIDIA partnership where NVIDIA said that Uber and them were teaming up to help kind of develop self-driving cars and accelerate that. So that was a big partnership. And then Tesla, too. I mean, that sold off today as well because they had their earnings report, and basically what you saw was some profit taken after earnings. So it presented some opportunity. So there's a lot of opportunity, lots of opportunity. I mean, I'm always saying that word because that's what we're doing, right? We have the long-term portfolio, and we're going to add to that, right, all the time. And then we're trading, right, in between all this. We're going to trade the headlines and make good decisions. And that's exactly what we've been doing, right, guys? We've been killing it. And I want everyone to stay locked in. I hope you enjoyed this watch list. I'm giving you guys all the news that you need to know, right? What's moving the market, what to pay attention to. You guys can make a lot of money. So stay tuned, guys. And have a great weekend, guys. It's Friday. Stay safe out there, and peace.